During the investigation, the following story emerged. Martha Stewart's close friend, Sam Waxel, was CEO of Inclone, a biotech company that produced anti-cancer drugs. When Waxel learned that the Food and Drug Administration was about to reject Inclone's cancer drug, Erbitux, he called his stockbroker, Peter Bekanovic. Bekanovic was on vacation, so Waxel spoke instead to his assistant, Doug Faniel, and instructed him to sell Waxel's Inclone stock. Faniel contacted Bekanovic and explained the situation. Bekanovic, who was also Martha Stewart's broker, told Faniel to call Stewart and tell her that Inclone's share price was likely to drop because Waxel was cashing out. Faniel did so, and Stewart sold all her Inclone shares one day before the announcement of the FDA's rejection. As expected, when the news became public, Inclone shares declined sharply. Had Stewart not sold, she would have lost almost $46,000. These losses were now distributed among the people who bought the shares that Stewart sold to a market ignorant of the FDA's upcoming decision. Were Martha Stewart's actions ethically wrong? You be the judge.
Now, what do you think? Was it her fault?
Her fault?
What did she do wrong?
Insider trading.
Insider trading. She's greedy. Ethically, I mean, not
I mean, she
legally.
got information. If any one of you would get this information, would you do the same?
It's a violation of the law.
Is it a violation of the law?
It's a violation of the SEC.
If she would not sell her shares, the buyers who bought the shares wouldn't buy from somebody else?
It's illegal to trade on insider information.
What is the reason it's illegal to trade? Because of what? Because you cause damage to the buyer? How about if the buyer would buy the shares regardless? If you wouldn't sell it, they would buy from somebody else.
I believe she was not convicted for insider trading. I think she was convicted of lying to the government, which is really a joke. Since
Who is
they
that?
lie to us every 2 seconds.
But what was she lying about? She was lying about inside trading.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so goes back to the core issue is the inside trading is the core issue. If inside trading is considered to be illegal, or inside trading is considered to be immoral, what do you think? You be the judge tonight. Obviously, we know what is the law of the United States. We know that inside trading is forbidden. That's the this is the way it was instituted in the market. However, even it was instituted that is totally forbidden and it's not acceptable, what Torah has to say about it? Does Torah agree with that, or Torah will disagree with that?
Okay.
So first of all, I'll give you a little view.
Keywords. A sale can be nullified if the product is defective or if the merchant is unaware of its true value. Conducting such a sale intentionally is forbidden. The law of ona'ah prohibits an individual from concluding a transaction at a price that is more favorable to himself than the competitive norm. A deviation from the market price of more than a sixth invalidates the sale, while a deviation of a sixth requires that the excess be returned. Ona'ah only takes into account the current market price, not that of a future date or of another location. All stipulations in monetary matters are valid. However, a person must be informed of the extent of his loss in order to be able to forgive it. At times, a stipulation can take effect without it being communicated. However, there must be a clear assessment based on the circumstances and the transaction that such a stipulation was intended. A person is obligated to save others from any financial loss. However, this obligation does not pertain if doing so will cause a loss of profit.
Those topics will be discussed tonight. However, I will start, since tonight's discussion is going to be about moral ethics. We'll start the discussion with a let's say someone is selling something in the business, and you're selling something which is worth $10. A buyer comes in, buys something that you think it's worth $10, you sold it to him, he gives you the $10, and you gave him, and you realize the item that you're selling him, he gave you, $20, and you gave him change, $10. He took the item, he took the $10, and he left the store. After he left the store, a half an hour later, you look in the box of the cash, and you see he didn't give you $20, he gave you $100. You don't know who he is, you don't have the information. Do you have to share this extra profit with your partner? This is just a joke, guys. In a way, is this your profit?
No.
Obviously not. This is something that it happened, a mistake in the business. Someone gave you extra money. Does it mean that you can pocket the money because it's yours? No. Everything is here. Whatever happens in the place of business is really not mine or my partner's. It's ours. Anything happens there is ours. It's our responsibility, and if there is any gain, it's ours. If it's any loss, it's our loss. That's the general rule. First of all, I would like to just mention outside we have delicious dessert prepared by Mr. Ahania. It's in Pinchas ben Aaron.
No, Aaron ben Pinchas.
Aaron ben Pinchas. Nishmat, the grandfather,
My
Shamash
father.
father.
Yeah, my grandfather was last week.
But it could be for both.
Pinchas ben Hanan. Also,
Husband.
Mr. Abdian, father, passed away also.
Uriel ben
Uriel ben Eliyahu.
Eliyahu. Then Nishmatam Tzorah B'Tzor Chaim, so when you come out, say Baracha, a blessing for the elevation of the soul. In that case, we have to present an idea that I already spoke about it in the synagogue, but it's a concept that I would like to start with that. Those who were in the shul last Shabbat, or Shabbat before when we spoke about it, you know the answer to it, because we spoke about it in the synagogue. But since the concept of this whole course is going to be how to address situation out of the box. There is the norm, what people think, and the advantage that Torah allows us to think out of the box, and that's the reason why Jewish people were successful in all the generations. Because the Jewish people had something beyond a usual wisdom. And that's called the ancient wisdom of the Torah, which comes directly from Hashem. We'll open up with a scenario. You're driving in a cold, freezing winter night with your sports car. In your sports car, you have only one seat available. And you pass by a bus stop. And in that bus stop, you see three people. You see an older woman who's about to die any minute because she's freezing to death. You see a second person who is a person who saved your life 10 years ago. You never had a chance to pay them back. And you have a third person. Is about a partner in life that you dreamed to get their attention once in your lifetime, so you can get perhaps a chance. They would never give you the chance of their life. And now you have the chance and the opportunity to do that. Whom would you offer their height? That's the question. Would you save the old lady and then you wouldn't pay back to your friend to save your life? And you would miss the opportunity of dating someone who you dreamed all your life. That's pikuach nefesh called. Or you would offer, listen, that person saved my life. I owe them a favor. It's 20 below zero. Freezing weather, I can pay them back now. Invite them back and let the old lady die. And let my date that I wanted to so much, forget about it. Or you would say, I'm sorry everyone, this is my opportunity to get and what I wanted all my life, and invite your date to come into the car. So this is something that you have to think about it. I'm not going to respond to you now. We're going to study and see by the end of the class if you can come up with a proper answer. Since we discussed about Martha Stewart and sale of stocks, just would like to mention, in Torah there is many ways to approach any possible case. And as we mentioned in this scenario that there is a way to find the rules and not to lose the games possible. It doesn't mean that Torah tells you that you got to be the loser and because of ethics you cannot make money. But we believe that according to Torah, because there is certain laws that Torah institutes in the world, this is the way we can make our money. And this is the way the money brings blessing into our lives. Although it seems at the moment that you may lose, but who looks at the moment when we look on the long range? And in the long view, you may lost in the moment, but you gained something greater even further. Or on the other hand, you gain something at the moment which you're going to lose much more in the future. So the Torah has a view that encompasses how we can be a win-win situation. Not to lose, but be a winner all the time. And that's what the Torah really teaches us. How can we, if we follow the rules of the Torah, we will be the winners. About insider trading. What is the prohibition of insider trading? Why should it be prohibited? Shouldn't some people gain? They have information. That's how democracy works. one has access to a commodity, and that's why they can get it at a cheaper rate, they sell it to somebody else at a higher rate. That's how people make money. What's wrong about insider trading?
It's unfair to the general society.
Why it's unfair?
Is
I am privy to information, so I sometimes gain, I sometimes lose. But I can make it because I am privy to this information. If I have the abilities to have that information, means I can this time make it. Maybe another time I will be on the other side of the coin.
For the marketplace to work effectively, there has to be a level playing field. So that's why these rules are imposed.
So in order it should be effective, you want everyone to what? To take risks
No,
when
to
they
have,
buy?
to take risks based on information that's publicly available to all people at the same time.
So let's analyze. The regulation that prohibits inside trading is everyone should have a fair chance to make it, or when it's not good news, everyone equally will be able to lose the money. Is this considered like selling someone a damaged property? If you sell a stock that you know is going to tumble in a day or two.
How can you know for sure?
Huh? If you have insider information. On what basis do you say that inside information is not considered to be appropriate, it's unethical? So, let's say you have an ignorant buyer who doesn't understand what they're buying, and you're selling them something, and they're ignorant, and they pay you for it. Is it your fault that they are not educated enough, or it's their problem? Are you responsible to tell them, listen, you're doing the mistake of your life by buying something, or you are trying to sell it? You found somebody who wants to buy it here. So at what point do you have to stop the buyer, or what point should you encourage to sell it? That's really the question.
Depends on your ethics.
So what is unethical over here to sell if you want to sell something that you are selling it? It's up to the buyer to decide if they want to buy it or not. So let's open up page 4, text 2. Since we saw the story already of Martha Stewart, we're not going to repeat it again. Anyone needs books? Everyone has books. Do we have more books?
Stan needs a book. I just read.
Stan needs a book. Okay. Maybe I have one more book. I have to check. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Huh? Give me 1 second. Let me see if I have it. The last one in the box, yeah. Okay. We're going to discuss what's the law, the way it applies to the marketplace. Maybe Bob Unger will read it for us, since you're the attorney.
Don't hold it against me.
We'll see after if you finish reading.
Insider trading is one of the most controversial aspects of securities regulation, even among the law and economics community. One set of scholars favors deregulation of insider trading, allowing corporations to set their own insider trading policies by contract. Another set of law and economics scholars, in contrast, contends that the property right to inside information should be assigned to the corporation and not subject to contractual reassignment. Deregulatory arguments are typically premised on the claims that insider trading promotes market efficiency, or that assigning the property right to inside information to managers is an efficient compensation scheme. Public choice analysis is also a staple of the deregulatory literature, arguing that the insider trading prohibition benefits market professionals and managers rather than investors. The argument in favor of regulating insider trading traditionally was based on fairness, which predictably has had little traction in the law and economics community. Instead, the economic argument in favor of mandatory insider trading prohibitions has typically rested on some variant of the economics of property rights in information.
So here we have a debate between the scholars, and as I understand, after 1929, I believe in 1934, they enacted the prohibition of inside trading. And then the question is what Jewish law has to say about it. Since the whole idea of the market is a modern concept to begin with, but every day there is halachic books being printed by halachic authorities. What Torah has to say about it. They are based on information that comes from other sources and based on the previous cases and so on, to apply to the modern day. However, in this case, the Torah doesn't expand much, but the Torah has one sentence that it has to apply to this. Basically, it relates on the Talmudic law, Dina de Malchuta Dina. The law of the land is our law too. As long as the law of the land does not contradict Torah, then we are obligated to follow with the law of the land. In this case, the law of the land, Dina de Malchuta Dina, the way it was instructed, and that's the way it was instituted and accepted, and that's became part of the law. The Congress voted on it, correct? 1934. So, this is the law of the land that we have to obey. The question is, does Talmud have anything to say about that? We understand this is the law. We respect the law of the land. What does Talmud has to say? We will connect to a study case. If you open up page 5 and try to compare what Talmud has to say about that. Want to read it for us? Go ahead.
For me?
Suppose that an honest man wants to sell a house because of certain defects of which he alone is aware. The building is supposed to be quite healthy, but is in fact insanitary. Insanitary, yes. And he is aware that it is. Or the place is badly built, is falling down, but nobody knows this except the owner. Suppose he does not disclose these facts to purchasers and sell the house for much more than he expected, as he behaved unfairly and dishonestly. Certainly he has, says Antipater at Athens, not to set a man right when he has lost his way is penalized by general execration, and is it not precisely the same thing to let a purchaser make a mistake and ruin himself with a very heavy loss. That is even worse than not showing a man the way, since in this case the purchaser is being deliberately misled. But he didn't force you to buy, did he? Objects Diogenes. He didn't even ask you to. He offered for sale something he didn't want. You bought something that you wanted. For when the purchaser can exercise his own judgment, what fault can there be on the part of the seller? It would surely be exceptionally stupid of a seller to enumerate the defects of what he's selling and the height of absurdity of the auctioneer to proclaim that the owner's request an insanitary house for sale. More?
That's it. All right. So we have two opinions over here. You want to sell a home. The home has a defect. You are aware of it. Perhaps you come to the buyer and say, inspect the house. Buy the house. This is the price. The buyer looks around, likes what he sees, is willing to pay you the price. Is it correct to sell the house without telling them what's the defects of the house? Or you're obligated to disclose the defects of the house?
You're obligated.
Why?
Because you mislead them.
If you tell the buyer on your own risk, go inspect, hire an engineer, look at the house, anyway, you should check before you buy. So if you want to be a fool and buy without checking, it's your problem. I am selling. Yes.
Not everything comes up with a check. Like, for instance, you can have a crack in the foundation, you can have a finished wall covering the crack, and people are not going to knock down the walls to check for cracks everywhere.
Okay.
So you have to disclose those kind of things. If not, I think it probably would be actionable.
But then you'll be a fool because nobody will buy it. So then you left out with a house that nobody will buy it.
Well, depending on the
For the right
cost.
price.
You have to sell it at its value at the time. After it's
Reduces
broken
the
down,
value.
The right price.
it has a reduced value. You can sell it at a reduced value, but not as a house that has no problem.
No.
You can make the repair yourself, depending what it costs.
That's one option. This is the argument of the scholars. On the one hand, you want to sell. As a seller, you can say as is on your own, or you're obligated to disclose all the information you know about it. But can you disclose all the information and still keep the sale going?
I don't remember, is home inspection mandatory now?
No, not many.
That's you have to ask the lawyer. Again.
Rabbi, if the seller obscures a fact that may not easily be discovered and it'll be life endangering, then I think that he morally has a responsibility to mention the fact that there's a problem. If it's going to be something that, let's say, a roof caving in and the inspector doesn't know of a certain thing. I don't know. I'm not a construction person, but when
We all know that you're not allowed to steal. Right? We all know it's obvious. But are you obligated to say the whole truth?
Yes.
That's the question. You can say the truth, but not the whole truth. Or you are obligated to say the whole truth.
I think it's just a matter of the value, not necessarily whether you're saying truth or you're
Correct. It is the value. And the whole truth will determine what's the value. Are you obligated to say the whole truth and then you will lose of the value? Or you can say, there may be some defects, like any house. Look at it, if you like it, if you don't like it, whatever it is. So how far are you obligated to say the truth? That's the question.
That's how religious you are.
Nothing to do with religion. Has to know what the Torah has to say about it, and the Torah does not speak to religious people. The Torah speaks to everyone equally. So let's open up page
Wait, let me ask you,
6.
what happens if it's priced fairly, taking into account all these repairs? Let's say he priced it fairly, given the fact that somebody's gonna find $20,000 worth of repairs. And
There's still the question of disclosure. Are you obligated to disclose, even if you priced it, accounting for that?
No,
So
I'm saying not making an excessive profit on it, but you're pricing in.
However, did you disclose to them that that's the reason why you're discounting? Or you didn't? You just discounted and you didn't tell them the truth?
Somebody would be suspect if a price is.
Well, why did you discount it? Did you tell them the whole truth or not? If you were holding the truth, so perhaps you're not saying the whole truth. Are you sharing the whole truth or not? That's the question here. Let's say you are discounting. Are you supposed to share the whole truth? That's the next question. So let's open up page 6, 3a. Moshe, go ahead.
Not the Hebrew part.
Comes from the Talmud. You can read English.
A person is forbidden to act in a smooth tongue and luring manner, saying one thing outwardly and thinking otherwise in one's heart. It is forbidden to deceive people. One should not press a colleague to share a meal when one knows that the colleague will not accept the invitation, nor should one press presents upon a colleague knowing that the colleague will not accept them. The same applies to all matter of this sort.
So here we know clearly what's the situation here. That it's called in Hebrew Gneivat Da'at. Stealing of someone else's mind, which is totally forbidden. Says the Maimonides, you're not supposed to say something which you don't mean it in your heart. The heart and the mouth have to be at the same place. So based on that, so we understand selling a home and not revealing the whole truth, it's called Gneivat Da'at. We'll go to a step further. Go ahead, on page 6, 3b.
Sorry, Rob. I understand the first part, but what is the second part has to do with it, that one should not press a colleague to share a meal when one
The
knows...
same thing, it's Gneivat Da'at means you are not sincere. You're asking him to come to share a meal, and you know you just showing him like you're his friend, but you don't want him in your home. You're just telling him come, but you don't really mean it.
Well, it doesn't say that when you don't want to, so when you know he doesn't accept.
Yeah, you know that he will not accept it for whatever reasons. But tell him, come anyway, come.
Because Persian's a style you make for you make everybody. You've been doing it wrong.
I didn't say you should stop doing it. But I said, when you do invite, mean it.
Even if you
Be
know
prepared.
even if you know he cannot come, maybe you convince him.
You should invite if you mean it. If they cannot come, it's their issue. But you should really, when you invite someone, you should be prepared they should come. They should accept your invitation.
Okay.
The Shulchan Aruch, the code of the Jewish law, goes one step further, based on the same thing. Page 6, 3b.
It is forbidden to trick people in commerce or to deceive them. For example, if merchandise is blemished, one must inform the customer. Likewise, one should not sell a Gentile non-kosher meat as if it were kosher.
Aha. So it goes even, not only a Jewish person you're supposed to be honest, But even a non-Jewish person, you gotta be totally honest.
About kosher meat?
Goes even further to say, a non-Jew, when you tell them, here is a kosher piece of meat, they know has a value to it more than regular meat. Briefly, we discussed about it during Mincha Arvi tonight. Why do they have a value? It's a higher authority. They know it's a blessed, it's more supervised, it's more clean, it's more everything, healthier and so on. That's what's called galat meat. It's healthy animal. In addition that it's kosher, it's also healthier. Has no inside any kind of illness or sickness. We check the animal after the shechita, the slaughtering, to make sure that inside the animal there is no illnesses. If there is any illness, it reflects the way the internal organs are. We tell them, we sometimes determine it's not galat, means not perfect. It has a problem. And sometimes it becomes not kosher. Not because it was slaughtered wrong, because there is an illness inside the animal. So obviously when a non-Jew eats and he wants to buy kosher, he also intends to pay more because he knows there is a value to kosher meat. When you tell the non-Jew, okay, you can have this meat, it was slaughtered, and you withhold the information to say that it was found non-kosher after that, so it means it's also called geneva dat. You stole the mind of this buyer. The goy, the non-Jew, may eat everything non-kosher to them, but this time he wanted to buy kosher for whatever reason. And even though you sold them in the price of non-kosher, and you did not tell him it's not kosher, it's also called gneva dat. Even though you sold it to him cheaper, and you say, okay, take it the price like any non-kosher, but you did not disclose this is actually also non-kosher, that's also called gneva dat, stealing the mind of the person, which is totally forbidden by the Torah. You surprised about it?
Not at all.
Okay. However, it's based on the idea you're selling something that is blemish and you did not disclose, called nevadat. How about if the seller is not aware that this is blemished? The seller doesn't know there is a problem. He just sold a property, a home, merchandise. He sold it like perfect because he truly felt and knew that this is good. Now the buyer who bought it, they found later on that this was damaged property or damaged commodity. But the seller truthfully did not know anything about it. Is it still, can be something changed about it? Should be something done about it? Is the sale, is a sale or not a sale? Can he return the money? Can he say to him, well, I got something that is not what I wanted to buy, and here is back to you, because you did not sell me a perfect item as I paid you.
The student is responsible, so he possibly has to give the money and go after the guy who sold it to him.
Let's say he owned a home. He lived in that home for 20 years and then he sold the home. He never knew there is a problem in the home. After the buyer bought it, he went to check the foundation and found a crack in the foundation. The seller did not know about it. So what happened? The rule now is the sale a valid sale, and the seller is an honest person. He wouldn't sell something like that. He says, I didn't know. If I would know, for sure I would tell you that. So what is the case now?
It's not it's stealing the mind.
I think it's valid, there's no deception.
Huh?
Maybe it depends on how much time passed. If he discovers it in 2 weeks, that's one thing. In 5 years, it's another.
Good point.
But it also depends.
But let's see what Talmud has to say.
It depends if it's a manufactured item also, because there's warranties. Not just this person who's selling it, but the manufacturer guarantees the product.
Correct. But let's not go that far to the manufacturer. It's already went so much time, went through so long ago. How long is the manufacturer involved and be responsible and so on. Let's go to the next part, which is on page 7, 3C.
When a person
Go ahead.
When a person sells a colleague real estate or movable property, if there is a defect in the property of which the purchaser was not aware, it may be returned, even though several years have passed, for the transaction was concluded under erroneous premises. The above applies provided the buyer did not use the purchased article after discovering the blemish. If, however, it was used after the blemish was discovered, the buyer forfeits the right to retract and may not return the article.
So, translate, simple terms. That he found that a mistake means a blemished property, a something that is called in Hebrew, in the Talmudic code, it's called mekach ta'ut. Mekach ta'ut means you bought something, but it's not what you intended to buy. This property that you purchased has a problem. And you discovered about it later. And the buyer was not aware of it. He can go and return the property back. Even after years later.
If it's not used.
Years later. It was used till then. But years later, when he discovered there was a problem, when he bought it, the question, did he use it after that or not? After he knew there is a problem. If he did not want to use it after he found out there is a problem, and he did not use it, he can go back to the seller and say, I'm sorry, I just found out 5 years later that you sold me something that was damaged. Take it back. He has to take it back and return the money. Aval, but if he used it even after he found out there was a damaged property, merchandise, then he will keep it. It shows that he agreed, that he didn't care it's blemished. He used it anyway after that. Means the action of his use shows what he really has in mind. If he would not use it because it's blemished, then he can return it. If he did it, if he used it, and now he wants to return a year later, even though he knew about it, it's too late. So based on that, let's identify and clarify two things. If you open up page 8, 101, what does Gneva Dad means? There is 3 options. Which one is correct? What's Gneva Dad means? Is the translation is a deception, theft of the mind. Mekach ta'ut means mistaken sale. When it's a mistaken sale, you can always return it because you were not aware of it. based on what we know now, what will be in a defective house? Can you return the defective house? Is it called a Geneva Dat or it's a Mekach Taut? So obviously we can say that a person that buys a home that is lapidating and has something is inside that nobody can see. So first of all, there is a Gneva Dat, and secondly, it's also called Mekach Taut. Why? Mekach Taut means it's a mistaken sale. If I would know there is such a problem, I would not want to buy it. The fact you sold me and you did not disclose the information allows me now to give you back your house and give me back my money. Even years later. That's number one. Now there's a different scenario. You're walking into a garage sale and everything in that garage sale is for $10, $9.99. You know those garage sales? And you have a good eye, you look around, and you spot something which looks old, looks like nothing, garbage, but you know there is a value to this. This is a piece of antique, that the value of that is thousands of dollars. Can you buy this for $9.99? Or you have to disclose to the seller and say, listen, this costs more money. Be careful.
You buy it immediately.
Without thinking.
Without thinking.
Best decision.
Now the question is, is that called Geneva Dat?
No,
Stealing of the mind or not?
You're not stealing. The seller wants to sell it. You're not changing anything that he's doing. He's ignorant of the value, but you're not deceiving him. If you try to bargain with him and buy it cheaper, then maybe.
So let's go to see what the Torah has to say about it. Stuart?
Sure. If a buyer purchases an item that has a hidden value of which the seller is unaware, like an antique, the buyer must inform the seller that this object is worth more than the average similar object on the market. One must do so due to the prohibition against deception. Furthermore, it would appear that if the buyer did not inform the seller the item sold is different than the item the seller intended to sell, and the sale can be nullified as a mistaken sale.
But this law differs than the law of United States, right?
Well, do we have attorneys here, lawyers?
In the United States, it's caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware.
And seller.
How about the seller? This is a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, morally, I don't agree with that, but the law is traditionally that as long as you're not defrauding somebody and telling them things that are misrepresentations, the seller or the buyer has to beware and take proper due diligence.
So if that's the case, do we say it's Mekach Taut? It means a mistaken sale. The seller can say, if I would know this is worth so much money, I would never sell it.
It's never done by the buyer.
So can we apply this to the buyer and say, hey buyer, you should know that. You went to buy something, if you didn't know and you bought it, it's one thing. The seller is ignorant, the buyer is ignorant, And later on, someone comes to the buyer's home and says, ah, you have such a beautiful piece. It's worth a lot of money. Ah, now it's the buyer's win. But if the buyer saw it while it was the seller's, in seller's possession, and the seller does not understand what he's selling, and the buyer says, okay, I'll buy it from you. What price do you want it? $9.99? Okay, here's $10.99. And the seller is very happy. He got his money, whatever he wanted, even a little bit more, and he's happy to give it to the buyer. Is the buyer's obligation to tell the seller you're doing something wrong?
And the Torah says you have to.
According to that, it's called Ganei Vadat. But it's not Mekach Taut. It's called Ganei Vadat, but it's not Mekach Taut. And I'll soon explain what's the difference between Mekach Taut and Ganei Vadat. Ganei Vadat, stealing of the mind. Mekach Taut, a mistaken sale. Perhaps the buyer did not specify to the seller how much it's worth, so it's called Gnei Vadat. But is it a mistaken sell? No. The seller wanted to sell, he wanted to buy, he paid the price that the seller asked, and that's it. The fact he did not disclose the information, that's called Gnei Vadat, which is a prohibition. But it's not nullifies the sale. Mekach Taut, it's a mistaken sale, nullifies the sale. Here, the case, in this case, does not nullify the sale. It's only Gnei Vadat. Yes, let's start. You have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the previous scenario, you brought up this possibility of both the buyer and the seller do not know about the defect of the house or the car.
Correct.
I didn't get, in that case, in that scenario, what's going to happen? Is it returnable?
If they both didn't know,
They both didn't know. Let's say,
so,
yeah.
on that case, it depends. If the buyer comes back to the seller and says, you didn't know, I didn't know, we just found out, do you want to return my money and I will give you back the object? Or you want to discount, compensate for the loss?
It's possible.
Either way, the option is in the hands of the buyer, even though the seller didn't know.
Is there a time issue? Does it matter how long in the future, or?
No.
No.
As long as he can prove it, that was the damage was done in the time of the sale and not happened later. That's already on the buyer's side to prove. If it was after a week or two, then he has to tell him, how do you know it's by me? Happened maybe by you?
Does he have to prove that he didn't enjoy it after he found out there was a problem?
And then he has to prove it to him that he never used it
All the
after.
law in the United States.
He never used it.
Is it
Prove
the
that?
same?
He has to show. Yes, he has to show. And he didn't touch it again.
It's not.
What?
I'm asking
He's asking me about the American law.
American
It's
law.
different. It's not based on the same moral standards. So what you were saying in the last case, just to make sure I understand you,
There is a difference with Gnei
it's not
Vadat.
negated. It's not null and void, but it's a sin.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not cancel, does not cancel the sale, but it is something Gnei Vadat, which is called forbidden to do.
So it's even worse to do Gneva than Mekach Taut. So what's the compensation of Gneva?
Gnei Vadat, there is no compensation besides a sin between you and Hashem. Hashem knows the truth, because nobody can prove it. What's Gnei Vadat? It's in your heart and your mind.
Just may get
But
a little,
Mekach Taut is something that you can prove it.
just may get a little hot later on.
But isn't it a mistaken sale because I sold an unknown picture, right, from an unknown artist? happened to be from Picasso. You know, you bought it, you knew it's Picasso, doesn't have the signature, but I didn't sell you a Picasso. You paid me for an unknown, artist, knowing that it's Picasso. If had I known it's a Picasso, I wouldn't have sold it to you at this price.
Correct.
So why it's not mistaken sale when it's reverse, when it's the buyer cheating the seller?
Cheating is already not mistaken.
Cheating is only what does, no? On both sides.
No, mistaken, which is, again, is not selling
What
the
is
same
Mekach
thing that
Ta'ud?
is
One of the conditions of Mekach Ta'ud, when the seller sells something that the buyer doesn't know the damages of that property or that object.
And the seller doesn't know also, no?
Seller may know, but he doesn't disclose. He doesn't share it. Or he doesn't know. It makes no difference.
So
Either way, it's called Mekach Ta'ud. However, if the seller wants to sell whatever it is, he says, listen, I'm selling it. I don't care what it is. I want to sell it. That's my price. You want to pay me my price or not? You're a buyer. You're a smart buyer. You look at this. It might be worth much more, but that's what the seller wants. Okay, I'll pay you. If the seller didn't do his homework, it's his problem, maybe you can think. That's why the sale is not nullified.
Okay, so still it's a sin, but it's not.
But you can tell him, listen, it's maybe worth much more. And he says, yes, I know, but that's the price I want. I want to sell it to you.
So then you're not responsible even for the first.
It's your problem. Seller's issue.
Yes.
So let's say you buy this object is $10, whatever, and you think it's worth a couple of $1,000. What would be decent to offer? Because you buying, you selling, you do mischar. So when you do mischar, you don't want to buy it at the market of whatever, $2,000. If you offer $500, is that decent? And you can triple your money in a day, or you have to offer him.
That's a subject that we'll discuss it soon.
How to make it kosher.
How to make it.
Made by God, isn't that more or less a sin between man and man? Why did you say man,
Man and
and
God.
Hashem? Why man and God? You're doing it to another person.
But the other person will never know about it.
But you're deliberately doing it to someone else.
Well, you would
So
never
isn't it
know.
your sin, even subconsciously
But
toward that
only
other
Hashem
person?
knows about it. It's not something that you can nullify the sale because of that. Because the seller wanted to sell. The buyer paid whatever the seller wanted. So he didn't do something wrong. Nobody did anything wrong over here in action. But the buyer did not reveal his full knowledge.
So continue one step further. He sells it at 10, it's worth 500. He buys it at 10, seller's happy, it's a sin, but then he takes part of the profits and gives it to tzedakah and keeps the rest.
Do not give tzedakah something that doesn't belong to you.
Okay. So it doesn't cure it.
You cannot be generous on somebody else's money. However, yeah.
What if you're not misrepresenting the value, but let's say you're misrepresenting your opportunity? Like you're saying, hey, I just want this for my own, let's say I'm buying an operating system, I'm saying, I just want this for my own personal business to run computers up. You're not saying that I'm gonna, sell it to IBM or do a business deal with IBM, in which case you can buy it for $150,000, where if the seller knew that you had this big business opportunity, the seller would say, I'm not selling it to you for less than $5 million.
Again, you don't have to disclose to the seller what you're going to do with it. The seller has to, if the seller gets the price, whatever the value in the market is, more or less, around the market value, it's fine.
So in this case,
The fact that you can take this object and turn around to become something greater, it's your brain that is producing it, not this object.
okay, can you bolster your bargaining position by saying, for instance, in a different scenario, I have a property and I have 5 other people that are interested in it, where in reality maybe only one is or not.
Well, what you can say is there might be other buyers. You can't say I have other buyers, but you can say I may get some other buyers based on that. That's what I want. But you don't know about it if you're going to get, but you're saying the truth. I may get, which is the honest truth. You may get, you may not. The Torah says specifically, if you open up page 10, 4a and 4b, Torah 5.
When you make a sale to your fellow, or make a purchase from the hand of your fellow, you shall not wrong one another.
So the Torah is very clear. When you sell or you buy, don't wrong one another. Next.
Less than a sixth, the sale is binding. More than a sixth, the sale is cancelled. A sixth, the sale is binding, and the ona'ah is refunded.
Now we're going into another law, which is called ona'ah. Ona'ah is a sixth. Let's say the market value that everyone can buy this item is $100. What's the sixth of $100? 16.6, right? So you can, let's say if you want to do an extra profit, you can sell it for $116. The $100 already makes you a profit. What everyone in this market will make a profit. Let's say whatever the profit can be, 10, 20%, you're already making this. But now on top of everybody else, you saw a buyer who's very eager to buy. You say, you really want it? I'll sell it to you for $116. Do you want it or not? And he says, okay, here is 116. And they bought it.
The 100 is the profit, or the 100 is the market value?
That's what the market value, but it's already, the profit is already there, because as a wholesaler, you're buying it maybe for $60 or for $70, and you sell it for $100. Now you see a buyer, so you say, you know what? I'll charge him a little bit extra. I'll make more profit. How much more profit are you allowed to make above the market value? So the Torah says, the Talmud says, 16th, a sixth, which is 1/6 of 100 is 16 more. So you make 116. How about if you told them 125 I want? What happens? Is a sale or not? If you made 125, he can say it's not a sale. He can come back to you and say, listen, you fooled me, give me back whatever you owe me.
What if you needed 50 pieces urgent today?
So you tell him, I don't have it available for your price. If you want, this is the price I want. So that's something else. Because the market doesn't have it. So you make the market. But if people in the market in other places have it, he can get it somewhere else.
Who knows if you can get it or not? I don't know if you can get it or not.
There is a fact. There is no shortage of it. If he wants to look, he can find it. There is no shortage. So if the market value is $100 and you sold them for 116, it's fine. But if you sold them for 120, he can say to you, listen, you fooled me. Give me back my money. Yeah.
Rabbi, in all these things, there is also element of risk that, for example, if I know that somebody wants property for $1 million and somebody sells it for 100,000, and I go to this guy and buy it for 100,000, there is a risk that I will not be able to sell it for $1 million. So, I mean, you have to accommodate for that as well.
$1 million to 100,000.
Well, I know somebody will buy it for $1 million, or there is a chance. I have one buyer, but it's not 100% guaranteed that that buyer will buy it for $1 million. So I'm buying something for 100,000. Let's say I have 70% chance that I will sell, but it may be 50%, 0%.
The question is, what's the value of this item?
But it's impossible to really say. It's maybe 100, maybe 300.
When you're referring one of a kind of an item that you buy for 100, you can sell it for 1,000. Let's say, right? The same numbers, just a little bit more. However, at the same time, this item is not available that he can buy everywhere. It's one item like that. So you determine the price because there's only one item. I'm speaking about the generic item that exists everywhere. And you just took advantage of a buyer. I'll give you an example. somebody walks into a store to buy glasses. So the owner, optometrist, let's call him, is teaching a new salesperson. And he sells them as follows. If a person walks in and he wants to buy glasses, how do you sell them? If a person comes and says, I wanted these glasses, how much are they? You look at them and you should tell them 75. If they don't look surprised so much, tell them, but the lenses is another 50. If they don't seem surprised yet, you say each lens is 50. So what does it comes out? It comes out basically is it called Gnei Vadat? Is it called Ona'ah or Mekach Ta'ut?
All three of them.
The word.
You check out the customer while you're selling them. Basically, you try to sell them as much as you can get. They should pay. If they don't seem surprised and not willing to run away, they're willing to pay, you charge them more. Is that the case? Or there is another way to look at it? Or there's another aspect to look at it. You have a friend who's hard of hearing, and the next day he comes in and says, I bought a hearing aid for $10,000. And they tell me this hearing aid will make me hear everything like I was 10 years old, I was able to hear. And he asked them, what did you find in this earring? What's so special about it? And they answer you, it's 2:30 p.m. now. What is it called? Mekach Ta'ut or Gnei Vadat? They bought an hearing aid that will help them to hear better, and they thought they're going to get the best. And when he asked them a question, why did you pay so much? The answer, the time is 2:30 p.m.
They bought a bad hearing aid. It's not working.
So obviously, it's called Mekach Ta'ut. A change, totally different what they were sold for. But if you're trying to sell, and say 75, 50, another 50 for the second lens, that's called, in a certain sense, Gnei Vadat. It's not necessarily a Mekach Ta'ut. It's Gnei Vadat. Is it called Ona'ah? 6? Obviously, yes, more than 6, because you make profit and profit and profit above profit here. So let's conclude this on page 11, text 4c. Ilya, you want to read it?
The law of Ona'ah prohibits an individual from concluding a transaction at a price that is more favorable to himself than the competitive norm. The law of Ona'ah validates the complainant's grievance that a better marketplace opportunity was available to him at the time he entered into the transaction. Economists would call Ona'ah complaint. Economists would call the Ona'ah complaint an opportunity cost claim. The complainant does not lose his right to transact the market norm unless we can be certain that he waived his right at the time he entered into the transaction.
So basically here we see that the moment you made an agreement, the agreement can stand. And it's based on a halachic rule, Talmudic rule, that any condition when it comes to monetary sale or buy, any condition is acceptable. Turn to page 13, 5b. Michael, you want to read for us?
The last statement, I mean, that rejected everything else we said, and you're saying?
No, if you made a condition, and I'll tell, we're gonna specify that. This, what I'm making the statement is an introduction to the next statement. So read it, listen to it carefully. Go ahead, Michael.
If a person tells a colleague, we are completing this transaction on the condition that you do not hold me responsible for ONA, the laws of ONA still apply. When is the above true? When the statement is made without being explicit. In such an instance, the disadvantaged party does not know the extent of the ONA and therefore cannot properly relinquish its claim.
Go ahead.
If, however, one is explicit, the laws of ONA do not apply because all conditions that are accepted by both parties are binding in cases of financial law. For example, if the seller tells the purchaser, I am aware that the object that I am selling for 200 zuz is only worth 100, yet I am selling it to you on the condition that you do not hold me responsible for ONA, the laws of ONA do not apply. Likewise, if the purchaser tells the seller, I know that this object that I am buying from you for 100 zuz is worth 200, am I purchasing it on the condition that you do not hold me responsible for ONA, the laws of ONA do not apply.
So here the Maimonides gives clearly what means conditions in sell or buy. If you come and tell someone, I am buying it, and you should know, I'm selling to you something, you should know you can buy it in the market for 100. But I will not sell it to you less than 150. If you want to buy it from me, that's the price. I know you can buy it somewhere else for 100. You want to go look for it? My pleasure. My price is 150. You want it? You can buy it. You don't want it? You can go and look. And you say, no, I know I can get it for 100 somewhere else, but I don't want to go look for it. I prefer to give you a 150 and take it from you. Are you permitted to sell it for 150 or not?
Yeah.
Obviously, yes. You didn't do nothing wrong with that because you specified all the conditions up front. If you're honest and disclose all the information, it's fine. That's how far it goes. Then there is no ona'ah, there is no mekach ta'ut, doesn't apply even to say gneva dat. This was not gneva dat. You didn't steal the mine, you sold, you told everything up front.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Let's say you're on eBay, you're auctioning something online, and the market price is 100, but you've set a minimum, like a reserve of 150. You know, essentially, you're saying that it's implicit in the transaction. Would
Correct.
that be considered?
No.
It's not ONA?
No, because they can go somewhere else and buy for 100. You are not the only seller on eBay.
So you're not the only seller in the market also to sell apples or to sell whatever, any other item that you ask for than 1/6, meaning you don't specify that don't hold me on if I sell 150. You put it on eBay 150. Also in the market, if someone comes to your shop and he whatever, you sell him a cell phone for $150. You can buy it out there for $100. You don't specify that you can buy it for $100. Whatever you said before, that is considered on because you ask for the market value is $100 retail, and you ask for $130, $150.
Okay. So the case is as follows. As long as you can disclose the truth, it's not called onah. As long as you told the buyer, listen, I know you can get this item somewhere else for different prices, maybe less, but that's my price.
But when you sell online, you don't have this communication with people. Just set your price. When you
But
sell,
online it's obvious that nobody goes to you and buys only from you. They look at other places too. Those who go online know exactly how they buy. They don't buy because of you. They compare you to somebody else, right?
Not necessarily.
Yes,
Most of the time.
That's the whole idea of online buying. You always look what's the best price you can get. And then you look, if I'm interested to buy from this person, regardless, even if it's more expensive, I have a reason why I'm buying this from here. I believe maybe this item is more important or is valued more. Why would you pay more if you can get the same item for less?
Because maybe the difference is
You
there's
find
no
it.
deception
Maybe
in
possible.
online. It's there. I mean, if you make an advertisement to make its price more or fake it, then you are responsible. But if you're just posting it there, you're not deceiving anybody. You're leaving it up to them to do the investigation. Versus when you're selling a house, you may just tell the guy this is a nice house. There's a lot of communication that you're actually acting as, deceiving.
Correct.
You broker your own house.
You broker your own house.
Go to case, page number 15, a very interesting case. Go ahead. Faith.
Suppose that there is a food shortage and famine at Rhodes, and the price of corn is extremely high. An honest man has brought the Rhodians a large stock of corn from Alexandria. He is aware that a number of other traders are on their way from Alexandria. He has seen their ships making for Rhodes with substantial cargoes of grain. Would he tell the Rhodesians this, or is he to say nothing and sell his stock at the best price he can get? I am assuming he is an enlightened, honest person. I am asking you to consider the deliberation and self-searching of the sort of man who would not keep the Rhodesians in ignorance if he thought this would be dishonest, and was not certain that dishonesty would be involved. In cases of this kind, that eminent and respected Stoic Diogenes of Babylon habitually takes one side, and his very clever pupil Antipater of Tarsus the other. Antipater says that all the facts must be revealed, and the purchaser must be as fully informed as the seller. According to Diogenes, on the other hand, the seller must declare the defect of his wares as well as the law of the land requires. But otherwise, provided he tells no untruths, he's entitled as a seller of goods to sell them as profitably as he can. I have brought my cargo, I have offered it for sale, I offer it as cheap as other dealers, perhaps cheaper, when I am overstocked. Who am I cheating?
So basically to say, now in this case, you're selling wheat, there is about another ship to arrive in a day or two, but now this is the price, there is not enough wheat in the market, and you want your price, a higher price obviously. Are you cheating, or are you supposed to disclose there's going to be another boat coming in another 2 days, and you can buy for cheaper then?
But that's future value. I guess for the present value, that's the right value.
So first of all, we look at the present. You're absolutely correct. One of the conditions is present moment. At the present moment, this is the value. So, am I have to disclose that in 2 days there is going to be another boat coming in, or not?
Then we get stuck at the Strait of Hormuz and nothing can come in. So.
Right next to that.
So based on what we're discussing now, it seems like that this is, everyone will agree that this is case is fine. However, if you open up page 17, we'll read 17, 7a. Who's next? Doctor, go ahead.
7A. There was once a food shortage in Nahardia.
Correct.
All the people sold their mansions in exchange for food. Eventually, wheat arrived. Rav Nachman said, the law is that the homes must return to their owners. These were cases of mistaken sales, for it became apparent that at the time of the sale, the ship carrying the wheat was standing in the side streams of the river, right outside the city.
So here we see a different opinion totally. Based on Rav Nachman in Nahardia, that the sale, he said you have to return to the homes. So what's going on over here? Do we have to follow Rav Nachman, or we saying it is a sale?
It's the probability of arriving that ship or the goods if it is too far away, there is a chance of not arriving. But if it is sailing next to the city or arrived at the port,
It's not arrived at the port, but it's next to the city, not too far from the
so
city.
the likelihood of any damage happening to it is very
But at
limited.
this moment, it doesn't exist. It was there, in a couple hours was there. Okay. But at that moment, still is that is the shortage. Still, Rav Nachman said you have to return back the money and get back the mansions. So, let's look a moment. Read the next paragraph on page 18:7b.
It's 17, page 17, 7b or?
Page 18, but 7b is on 17 or 18, please?
18. In English,
18. English is 7, yeah, 18.
If the market price changes after the sale, an ona claim cannot be made as a result of this change. Some have asked regarding merchandise that was bought right before the delivery of the large quantity of additional stock from nearby, which substantially reduced the market price. If the new shipment was already on the way to the market at the time the merchandise was bought, does ona'ah apply? They bring a proof that there is ona'ah in such a case by citing the Talmud, Ketubot 97a, in which we see that wheat that came afterwards by ship was considered to have been in the city during the sale. The same should therefore apply in this case.
So here we see that in this case of wheat, we see on one hand Rav Nachman said it should be returned. On the other hand, we see at the time of the sale there was no wheat, but in a short period of time did arrive. So how do we handle that? On what basis can we conclude this decision, and what is it compared to? That's how a Talmudic law works. To compare one case to the next case. On what basis did Rav Nachman say you got to return your money and take back the homes? You should return back the homes. Shmuel, you want to read it for us? You have a book or not? Would you read something? Page 18.
If the moribund person deeds all his property to other people, but leaves some land for himself, his gift stands even if he recovers. If, however, he did not leave any land for himself, the gift is nullified if he recovers.
Okay, so now let's summarize what you just read.
Don't understand.
A shchit mara, a person is about to die. And he says, all my property is given away to you. Didn't say why, didn't say for what. I'm giving to you, everything that belongs to me. And in a few days he recovered. And he's feeling well. He comes to you, hey, give it back to me. He says, what do you mean give it back to you? You gifted me. Why would I give it back to you now? They go to court, to Beit Din, and the Beit Din say, give back everything to him. Why? Why did he gift it to you? He was a shchiv mara. He was about to pass on. He gifted to you everything. However, if at the time he gifted to you only 70%, 80% of his property, and 20% he left for himself,
He knew he's not dying.
he wasn't sure that he would die. If he would be sure that he would die, he would give you 100%. Why did he keep 20%? He wasn't sure. So even though he recovered, you can keep this 80%.
So that same kind of analogy would work with the wheat.
So same thing analogy would work with Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman, in the time of Rav Nachman in Nahar Da, was very unusual to sell your mansion, your home, your mansion, for wheat. People would not do that. Why would they do that? Only if they would think we are dying anyway. I would do that. Otherwise, there is no reason. So in that case, Rav Nachman compared his situation to a shchid mara, a person who's about to die. But in a regular situation, where there is not compared to a shchid mara, if someone says to you, listen, I'm selling to you something even though you know you can buy it for more, this is my price, that's acceptable.
If I sell you my mansion for wheat, even though I have other property, you still have to return my mansion?
No, if you have other property, no.
You sold your mansion, which is, that mansion is very unusual.
Okay, but I have other mansions. That's not my only house.
No, he's talking
Well,
about.
that's something else. But if you sold it because you thought this is the one, then it's something else.
So it only applies to primary residence?
We'll take primary residence, that's correct.
Depends you have a villa in Hampton or not.
Well, if you have to sell it for wheat, it means food. If you don't have food, you will die. That's the whole point.
We'll go back to the original question that we asked in the beginning of the class.
Martha Stewart.
Okay, so maybe
but
bend
the-
the rules, but with the original question, give the keys to your best friend to drive the old woman to the hospital, and then you stay with the date. Then you go and you keep the woman company.
That's one solution. And
If you survive.
why would Martha Stewart be wrong?
He knows the value is going down, so it's a damaged good.
Even though that buyer would lose the money anyway, but you are selling something that is damaged property. So obviously her fault, her partner's fault, or whoever told her to do that. Let's watch the video again and see if there is a change.
So why did you say that the Torah doesn't have much to say about this case?
Hopefully we're going to discuss about inside trading.
Good things are
Down,
essential at Martha
down.
Stewart Living. They're those simple, clever shortcuts and solutions that make everyday living just a little easier.
Known as the most famous homemaker in America, Martha Stewart transformed entertainment in the home into a worldwide media empire. With a daily TV show, her own product line, and countless publications, Stewart became a billionaire when her company went public in 1999. 2 years later, Stewart's star lost some of its shine when she was accused of insider trading.
In New York today, Martha Stewart was indicted on criminal charges relating to an insider trading scandal that began more than a year ago.
When she's convicted of all these charges, she faces up to 30 years in prison and $2 million in fine.
During the investigation, the following story emerged. Martha Stewart's close friend, Sam Waxel, was CEO of Inclone, a biotech company that produced anti-cancer drugs. When Waxel learned that the Food and Drug Administration was about to reject Inclone's cancer drug, Erbitux, he called his stockbroker, Peter Bekanovic. Bekanovic was on vacation, so Waxel spoke instead to his assistant, Doug Faniel, and instructed him to sell Waxel's Inclone stock. Faniel contacted Bekanovic and explained the situation. Bekanovic, who was also Martha Stewart's broker, told Faniel to call Stewart and tell her that Inclone's share price was likely to drop because Waxel was cashing out. Faniel did so, and Stewart sold all her Inclone shares 1 day before the announcement of the FDA's rejection. As expected, when the news became public, Inclone shares declined sharply. Had Stewart not sold, she would have lost almost $46,000. These losses were now distributed among the people who bought the shares that Stewart sold to a market ignorant of the FDA's upcoming decision. Were Martha Stewart's actions ethically wrong? You be the judge.
Based on that, what we learned, was it Gneva Dat? Stealing of the mind? Was it Ona'ah? Was it Ona'ah sixth?
Yeah.
Was it Mekach Ta'ut? And mistaken sale?
No, she knew what she was doing.
Huh? No. Was it a mistaken sale means she sold something to somebody else that did not know what they buying?
Yeah.
Obvious. She sold the stock, she knew it's going to tumble soon, and the value of that is not the same. So the Talmud doesn't discuss about inside trading, but the Talmud discusses many other topics that leads us to understand how to compare about inside trading. That's one little example how we study Talmudic law and apply it to current times. That's why Torah is relevant. Lecture next week will continue to the next level. Your answer is correct. Everyone is invited by Elias Lehania, make bracha,
he saved his life, he saved his life. And you spend time with the exactly, you both have safe future.
But then you survive.
The question is you survive. No, you won't survive. You just go to bed. No, huddle together for long. Well, ask him to go bring something.
Yeah, bring something back.
Just a second.
Rabbi, you know,